Another issue during the course of the week, concessions for NRL clubs to sign rugby union players. You like it or you don't like it, Mal?
Um, I don't mind it. I don't mind it. If it's obviously it helps our competition. Getting quality people playing our game. I think that's great. Having concessions, I think that's great. As the competition expands, you would think that we'll need more players as well. So I think
Yep.
that's very smart in obviously allowing those type of things to happen. So I'm all in favour of it. So as long as obviously there's a lot of clubs will do that and try and get better players. And what happens to the players that are currently in the clubs? That sort of worries me a bit. But it's a tough old competition, and if it expands to 18 teams or 20 teams, we'll need the cattle.
Yeah. And that's right. And obviously, rugby union is going to be a part of that, especially if New Zealand and a second team is over there. Was there a transition from a player in your time, a rugby union player, either successful or unsuccessful, that you look back on now? And is there anyone, as in your role as coach of the Kangaroos, that you would look at maybe playing for the Wallabies or a Super Rugby franchise that you think, oh, that player would be interesting to watch in rugby league, knowing that Mark Nawangani-Tawasi is going to be playing with the Roosters and Carter Gordon with the Titans?
Yeah. Well, in my time, Michael O'Connor was, I would think, so probably the best convert at
Yeah.
the time. Tony Burke as well. They're all exceptional players of their time. Jason Little, I had utmost respect for, going back, when he played for the Wallabies in Queensland at the time. There's a whole heap of players. Ray Price springs to mind straight away. As a tough forward that made that transition. Scott Goulet from
Yes.
the Dragons, I thought he made that transition extremely well. The good thing about rugby union and rugby league in Australia, I mean, most of them would have played the sports at school, so they're unforeign to it. So that transition from rugby to league or league to rugby, I think, we've had a lot of rugby league players go over and play rugby union and were quite successful as well. I just think if you actually understand the game, league and union, I think you can make those transitions as long as you're a player at the top of your of the tree when you in that one of those codes. So I just feel that it's a good way, and I'm glad that rugby league, while it sits on top at the moment, is making some really good decisions around trying to improve our competition, which is it's fantastic. So, but you go to the school systems, Jimmy. A lot of rugby league kids are in the private school systems, playing rugby union, first 15 and stuff, then coming back and playing back in league land. They're doing a lot of that happening over in New Zealand at the moment, where
Yep.
obviously there's some issues with the schools, and
Yes.
particularly with allowing kids, rugby union kids, to come and play rugby league, at the same time. But it'll eventually get there, because I think there's, with mums and dads in particular, if they see there's opportunity for both codes, I feel that they should be allowed to, make those sort of decisions, on behalf of their children.
Yeah. Well, if you look at it purely from a context of what are the opportunities that are available, in rugby union they're shrinking with the termination of the Melbourne Rebels, and in rugby league they're growing with an 18th, 19th and 20th franchise. So pure mathematics tells you that there's greater opportunity there, Mel.
Yeah, and I think also that's correct, Jimmy. I totally agree with you. And the other thing is that because it's shrinking, the rugby union's shrinking, they're feeling that having a lot of their players banked up in the one team or two teams was certainly going to help their chances from an international point of view. So that shared experience model that they're looking at as well. So as it shrinks, you're only going to get players that are committed to rugby union play for, say, Queensland and New South Wales, the Waratahs in particular, and then obviously where's the rest of them go to, who they play for.
Yeah.
So, but I think the key to it all is the school systems, mate, and what happens. You can't obviously talk about kids' opportunities going to private systems being paid by rugby union to go play in those private, the schools being paying for their education, but what I think what's happened is that because of that, they go do that, and then they'll come back to rugby league. I think it's great, and then I think managers have got a place to play here as well, because I know that mid-20s or when they've had a few years in rugby league, there's that opens up the opportunities to go play globally in rugby union too. So Japan, as we talk about,
Yeah.
and France in particular, have got big pockets, deep pockets. So there's actually rugby union players now at a younger age going to play in those two countries because of the opportunity.
Yeah, no doubt about it. So Joseph Swalihi, we know, will go to Australian rugby, and then Joey Manu's going to go to Japanese rugby. So it cuts across both ways. And with that school system, like, they're not all created equal, are they? So Cameron Murray went to Newington, but he was a rugby league guy. But Angus Crichton went to Scots. He was a rugby guy that then transitioned to rugby league.
That's right, exactly. So I don't, like I said, I think it matters what upbringing you have. I just think everyone's exposed to both codes. You can't, like I said, you can't deny them going into the independent systems and getting education paid for, and then it's a fight between rugby and rugby league, isn't it? And at the moment we're winning that battle. Yeah,
and I think famously, I don't know who it was in particular at the Waratahs, said to Angus Crichton, "We don't see you playing Super Rugby for 4 years," and he went, "No, I don't want to wait that long," and that's one of the reasons that he went to the Rabbitohs at that time. All right, now we've got lots of people saying, Ricky Stewart had a rugby background, says Rob in Blacktown, and the Reptile said that, and the Coffs Comet. So, yeah, he made a fair transition, Mel.
No, he did, yeah, but he played rugby league all through his juniors until he went to St Eddie's, where it was a rugby union school, obviously. And he obviously... he stayed at school. He went an extra year in school to play for the Australian schoolboys in rugby, and then obviously he got an opportunity to go play in the main team. The Wallabies went over on a tour to Argentina.
Yes,
and that was in '87, I think it was, and then '88 he come back and played rugby league for the Raiders, and the history's tells you that obviously he made a great transition back into rugby league and one of the great halfbacks of our time.
Well, Wally Lewis played on that Australian schoolboys rugby team, that legendary side with the Ella brothers.
Yeah, and I think Tony Roach was part of that as well, who predominantly played rugby union, but come across and played a little bit of rugby league in the Brisbane BRL competition for brothers, I think it was, and he was quite successful. So, yeah, I mean, some of our greatest players have played both codes, really, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
I think that's great grounding, So just what that also tells you is that you just don't restrict yourself to one sport, really. You should be, for any advice to parents out there with kids, that you got to expose them to a whole heap of opportunities, particularly in sport and skills, and improves your skill sets. And when you reach your sort of late teens and things, that's when you start to make a decision. Obviously at the back end of your school days, that's when you start to make a decision about which way you want to go.
Did you ever play rugby?
I played a lot of rugby.
Did you?
Through school and through the police force with the armed services. So I started playing rugby at school, but obviously 15 when I joined the police force. I played a bit of AFL. Played heaps of soccer when I was a kid. So I think having a well-rounded upbringing as far as any activity is, but certainly in sport, will certainly help your skill set as you get on, and when you want to specialise and become an expert in one particular sport.
Yeah. Hey, getting away from that, and people can have their say on that. 0457. Oh, here we go. From the Shire Bronco, Brad Thorn was a good cross-code convert. Broncos and Australia and the All Blacks. That's a good nomination.
Which is, he was great, wasn't he? So for him to do what he did, that's extraordinary. Playing premierships, obviously played for the Crusaders, won premierships in the Super League, and playing for the All Blacks is, at the time that he did it, that's extraordinary. He's one of the probably our best example, I reckon. When you talk about going from one code to the other, coming back to the code, then going back to the other code. Then obviously, he's I know he coached the Reds and they didn't have a lot of success, but by all reports, he was a very good coach as well.
Yeah. Yeah. I had a mate who was at the Crusaders at the time, and he talked about the impact that Brad. Now, the Crusaders are a hugely successful franchise in Super Rugby, but even he talked about the impact that Brad Thorn had walking into that organisation, just on the back of his professionalism that he had from not only rugby league, but in particular the Brisbane Broncos.
Yeah, so his trained ethics and the way he looked after himself was extraordinary. And so he was a great leader in both codes.
Yeah, no doubt. All right, keep the text messages coming in. We'll get to them after the break. I want to ask Mal about the Parramatta Eels, the coaching job, just checking in on Billy Slater. Everyone seemingly having their say. We're all looking through the glass house, Mal, apparently. Is that right?
The glass house has turned a little frosted now, so there's a bit of frost in there, so you can't actually see out and in, So yeah, it hasn't quite cracked yet though.
No, it hasn't cracked. No, it hasn't cracked. Let's be clear about that.
It hasn't cracked yet. No.
All right,
no,
just a little frosty.
Probably a little hot. Probably a little hot at the moment. Though.
Is that a little? Oh dear, in the glass house. All right,
a little hot house. Yeah.
Exactly. 1300 01 1170 if you want to have a chat with Mal. Get us on the text line 0457 736 736. It's the Throwdown with Mal Meninga, and it's all thanks to Chemist Warehouse these days, which is a fair complaint, Mal.
And let's talk to the government about obviously putting sport on back at schools as well. I think school sport is so crucial, to well-being and the fitness and health of our young people. So, if I had an argument about anything, I had to go to government and speak to, to Albo. I'm saying, well, let's invest a bit more sport or physical activity at schools, because I think you get a hold of everyone then, don't you? Schools have got the whole population of kids. So get the schools to be a bit more responsible, I reckon, around that space.
I'll make a statement here and say that mobile phones, are more of a scourge on the youth than the pandemic.
I agree.
They are shocking.
I just look at my kids, So if they get hold of a phone, God, they see you later, alligator. You just got to try and take it off them and try to move them on. But they just get absorbed by it, And I know that if I'm travelling, I play a bit of Sudoku or whatever the case may be. I get all those apps on my mobile phone. I can get hung up, and then I keep on playing the bloody things, And all of a sudden it's late at night, and I don't get enough sleep, and that's what's happening with kids,
Totally.
So you do get addicted to it.
Yeah, the dopamine hit. All right, now earlier this week, Andrew Johns, who listens to this segment too, he revealed exclusively the other day, Mal. He listens, so...
Oh, did he?
He did, yeah. I saw him down in Melbourne, and he said, I like listening on a Thursday. When Mal gives it to you. But anyway, so this is what he said on the podcast. What is it, Freddie and the Eighth?
They have to make a change on the right edge. They cannot have Valentine Holmes at right centre. And I know they're going to blow up and say, we're not listening to New South Wales. Xavier Coates out. They have to put Valentine Holmes on the wing and put Cobbo at centre, without a doubt. Or... they go for experience, someone who's been there before, in Dane Gagai. But look...
But he hasn't struggled before defensively,
but he hasn't had Latrell and also Angus Crichton punching those gaps between him and Cherry Evans. They just couldn't handle it.
Yeah.
And Cherry couldn't handle Angus Crichton. So if you've got eyes for Latrell as a centre, then you're going to isolate Daly Cherry Evans with Angus. Angus at the moment, no one can tackle him.
Crichton
He's in that good a form.
Thoughts, Mal?
Oh, well, Coates is out, so, I have a tendency to agree with Joey, to be honest with you. I feel that, I think Val's best position, in my opinion, because he plays right wing for me in the Australian team. I just think he's never let his country down. He's never let his state down, really. But I just think, having Selwyn come back, play right centre. Selwyn can play right centre. Val's plays right wing. You've got Hamaso and you've got Murray Taulagi on the other side. But when you talk about defence, the Queensland were beaten up pretty severely through the middle. The play the ball speed was pretty quick. And then if you got that happening through your middle, and the New South Wales forwards are excellent, all of a sudden you're on the back foot. And when you got big bodies coming at you at speed, got momentum, it's very difficult to control. And so there's obviously got to be a mindset change with the Queensland side. The middle have got a big job to do against the big Blues middle. So whoever wins that battle, and it's always the same in the game of rugby league. Whoever wins that battle generally gives them a better chance of actually winning the game. So edge defence, when you're under pressure, you got to try and work together. But against, and what Joey said, Angus Crichton's going great. Latrell's such a big body, it's hard to tackle one-on-one.
Yep.
And, maybe Selwyn or Dane Gagai, but I got a feeling that, hopefully, I know Selwyn can play right centre. He prefers to be in the centres. And I know Val is excellent on the wing. So I don't think Queensland have got, much option really because of, Xavier Case missing the game.
Just on that try that Latrell gave, the flick try assist to Brian I think it was second try of the game in Melbourne.
Yeah.
And Xavier Coates just turned in because it was Latrell, right? It's the threat of Latrell, the big body. I've got to help my mate. And as soon as he turned, bang, gave the pass, and that was the try.
Yeah. Yeah, well, in those circumstances, patience is a virtue, so, and it's difficult if you've got a big body like Latrell coming at you, you sort of think, second guessing yourself and you're going to come in, Xavier should have stayed a bit and allowed Val to get to Latrell in that instant, but he didn't. And Latrell's smart enough to witness that and just bang straight, little flick to Brian and scores in the corner. So, he does. And you're right, you're exactly right. But again, if you're defending smarter and you're defending a lot more patient, they would have solved that problem.
Yeah. Do you now have an appreciation of how Mick Delroy felt when he was facing you, Mal? He was about 68 kilos wringing wet, Mick Delroy, and he played in the centres for Parramatta.
Well, it wasn't my fault. I didn't pick him. Tell the coach.
They should have stood Chris Phelan out there, right? That's the one they should have put out there.
Yeah, well, exactly right. I wouldn't have run into Chris. He would have belted me. I was trying to run around him, though.
Oh, yeah. 1300 01 1170. We've got callers there. I'll tell you what we'll do. We'll go to the news, and then we're back with your call. Stick around. It's the Throwdown with Mal Meninga, all thanks to Chemist Warehouse.